America is not a racist country.
Ladies and gentlemen, a judge in Tulsa will allow the race riot reparations lawsuit to move forward. This is a disgrace. These recipients are all over 100 years old, and they need to make this in a way. If they don't survive, the money can go to the next of kin, just like the slave owners, money went to the next of kin. That same thing should happen in this case. Tulsa riots happened in 1921, so we're talking over 100 years. If America was about justice, then it would not have taken this long to compensate these folks that went through a real massacre on American soil out of jealousy of the people, because y'all were going through the Great Depression and living in shanty shacks. And these folks became multimillionaires. So it was pure jealousy was the number one reason, along with race, for this massacre that took place. So we know you're never going to be about justice. We already know that. So, an Oklahoma judge ruled Monday that a lawsuit seeking reparations for the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre can proceed, bringing new hope for some measure of justice for the three survivors of the deadly racist rampage who are now over 100 years old and were in the courtroom for the decision. So all three are over 100 years old, and all three were in the courtroom. Tulsa County District Court Judge Caroline Wall ruled against a motion to dismiss the suit filed by a civil rights attorney, Demario Solomon Simmons, in 2020. The Tulsa based attorney said that Wall announced her ruling that it is critical for living survivors. Leslie Benningfield Randall, she's 107 years old. Viola Fletcher, 107 years old. And Hughes Van Ellis, 101 years old. But you know what this also proves, y'all? There's a lot of longevity in our people. Despite the fact they keep trying to tell us we don't live as long, which is not true. Look, how many of you got people in your family in their 90s and hundreds? I do. I do. Okay, we got people like this in our own families. I see a lot of their people not even making it to these ages. So you can miss us all. You can miss all of us. Now, there were a few more that made it to 100 years old that were in the massacre, but they have since died. But it was several of them that made it to over 100 years old. All right. We want them to see justice in their lifetime, he said, choking back tears. I've seen so many survivors die in my 20 plus years working on this issue. I don't want to see the last three die without justice. That's why the time is of the essence. So I agree with him on that. It really is. When you're dealing with people well over 100 years old, yeah, you need to move and move swiftly. The packed courtroom, which Wall noted would have been over capacity, erupted in cheers and tears after she handed down the ruling. Solomon Simmons sued under the Oklahoma public nuisance law, and he was saying the actions of the white mob that killed hundreds of black residents and destroyed what had been the nation's most prosperous black business district continue to affect the city today. And there were several Black Wall Streets in different states. It was not just this one location. Okay, so the lawsuit also seeks reparation for descendants of victims of the massacre, which I think is right. Even the ones that have passed, there should be some kind of restitution for living family members. All right, it is clear either the criminal acts or destruction of personal property constitutes, enough for reparations. And the people that died, the mass grave that they said is over there in Tulsa. I mean, this is just a disgrace. So these folks have definitely suffered racial and economic disparities resulting from the massacre, and it continue on until this very day. The Chamber of Commerce attorney John Tucker said the massacre was horrible, but it was not ongoing. Yes, it is. It is ongoing because racism has been ongoing in this country. So I disagree with him. Economic and the racism that these folks had to live through, that was ongoing. So what happened in 1921 is really bad. Those people did not get a fair shake, but that was 100 years ago. Tucker said, "Yeah, but there's no statute of limitation for murder, and these folks were murdered out of racism and jealousy. There is no statute of limitation, and there shouldn't be one for massacring people. I don't care if it was 200 years ago." Oklahoma sued consumer products giant Johnson and Johnson using the state public law for its role in a deadly opioid crisis. Initially, the judge ordered the drug maker to pay the state $465 million in damages, but the Oklahoma Supreme Court overturned the Johnson and Johnson verdict, ruling that the public law did not apply because the company had no control over the drug after it was sold to pharmacies, hospitals, and physician offices, and then prescribed by doctors to patients. Miller said the state court ruling in the Johnson and Johnson case does not affect the lawsuit. The massacre happened when angry white jealous mob descended on 35 block area in Tulsa Greenwood district, killing people and looting and burning businesses and homes that were better than the ones they were living in. Thousands of people were left homeless and living, and oh wow, that's right, they went to internment camps, y'all. I remember reading about that years ago. So that's what happened. The ones that survived were placed into internment camps. The city and insurance companies never compensated victims for their losses, and the massacre ultimately resulted in racial and economic disparities that still exist today, the lawsuit claims. No, that's a fact. In the years following the massacre, according to the lawsuit, the city and county officials actively, um, so what they did was they tried to push this whole thing in the background, and not deal with it. So, it was neglected for many decades, purposely, purposely neglected. And Greenwood was a predominantly Black North Tulsa community in favor of overwhelmingly white parts of Tulsa. Other defendants, including the Tulsa County Board of County Commissioners, Tulsa Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, Tulsa County Sheriff, and the Oklahoma Military Department. The lawsuit seeks unspecified punitive damages and calls for the creation of a hospital in North Tulsa. in addition to mental health and education programs and a Tulsa Massacre Victim Compensation Fund. All right, so this is in addition to money that they are requesting. The massacre received renewed attention in recent years after the then President Donald Trump selected Tulsa as the location for a 2020 campaign rally. Yeah, and I remember a lot of people uh, really got on Donald Trump for that. They said it was very insensitive because if you remember, the date that he picked was the day of the massacre, or like the day before day, it was somewhere around there. And a lot of people really tore into Donald Trump over that. And the funny part is he did have his campaign rally, and y'all remember it was hardly no one there. So so much for that. And the ongoing racial reckoning over police brutality and racial violence, Trump moved a date of his June rally to avoid, the Juneteenth celebration that was in the city of Greenwood district commemorating the end of slavery. Well, I hope they get compensation. It's a damn shame that they are so old now, but they can certainly use it for the daily care that they require. And I hope they have plenty to pass down to their families. They definitely deserve it. You know, they always tell you in this country, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? Now we have a group of people. In 1921, they did exactly that. They pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. And these folks got so upset, they went in there and burnt their town down, killed people, and stole things that didn't belong to them. Just imagine that, looting, what they try to put on us all the time. But yet we can find all kinds of history of these same people looting. That's why looting should fall flat every time they mention it. But y'all, please tell me what you think. I wish these folks the best. They deserve everything and more, as far as I'm concerned, for everything they have been through. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.